Questions you've just discussed revealed some differences of opinion in your group. If so, that's fine, because the questions were purposely designed to provoke an exchange of ideas and viewpoints. Since we all pull different values from experience, it is profitable to test our thinking against that of others. Well, let's listen now to how the very same questions were answered by a panel made up of salesmen and executives with long, successful experience in the life insurance field. Keep your question sheets in front of you so you can compare your answers with those chosen by our panel. The first question dealt with this situation.
I've been talking life insurance to everybody I meet, no matter where I meet them.
Yes, some agents do that, but I don't recommend it. In my opinion, that kind of aggressiveness has created much of the public's resistance to buying insurance.
This first question split the panel wide open. They just couldn't reach an agreement. Each of the answers received some votes. Here's a panel member to explain his viewpoint.
I like that B answer. I agree with the old-timer in this case that buttonholing people and trying to sell them a life insurance policy is what creates much of the general resistance we all run into. This is the kind of selling responsible for the cartoons and jokes about aggressive insurance salesmen. Not long ago, for example, the newspapers carried a story about an agent who, while he was on the operating table, sold policies to a doctor and 2 nurses. Well, of course, as salesmen, we have a tendency to admire that sort of aggressiveness. But this kind of newspaper story is what causes people to go on the defensive as soon as you tell them you're an insurance man. The same public reaction, for example, has made things difficult today for door-to-door salesmen. Over-aggressive selling in that field during the 1930s created a popular picture of the house-to-house salesman as someone who puts his foot in the door as soon as it's opened. The result is, today, the house-to-house salesman is no longer welcomed as he once was. He finds it difficult to get people to listen, and he occupies a low position on the social scale. Besides creating an unfavorable impression of the insurance field in general, I think that agents who try to turn every chance encounter into a sales presentation eventually find themselves without friends and well-wishers.
Those of us who voted for answer C believe that a better reason for not buttonholing everyone you meet is that it just doesn't pay. We think you can get better results from the same amount of effort by making appointments with qualified prospects. An analysis of the sales of top producers invariably shows that about 55% of their sales are made to individuals with whom they're acquainted. About 30% comes from referrals, and only about 15% from cold contacts. Now, these figures are proof enough that an agent's time is best spent building his standing with people he knows.
Despite these arguments, a few panel members still favor the A answer. In their opinion, aggressive selling is necessary to overcome the public's reluctance to discuss insurance. They favor talking up insurance coverage at every opportunity, arguing that the more people we can sell on the inherent values of life insurance, the sooner we'll overcome the public's tendency to avoid the subject. Well, looks like this is one of those questions that'll never be settled. So let's move along to question 2, which asked for your reaction to this statement.
It isn't worthwhile to spend a lot of time talking insurance to individuals who have a closed mind. Matter of fact, if I can't, by the second interview, get a prospect to agree that life insurance gives necessary and valuable protection, and that he has a need for it, I remove that person's name from my file.
The panel agreed with this thinking, so answer A won their votes on this second question. Here's a panel member to explain their reasoning.
If insurance prospects were extremely difficult to obtain, it might be worth spending time on someone who has a need and the money to buy. But in our judgment, if the prospect opposes the very idea of insurance and you can't change his viewpoint by the second interview, it's hardly worthwhile as a general rule to keep calling back on it.
Naturally, we're not referring to the prospect who admits the value of insurance but is reluctant to put aside the money for it. That's the usual prospect. No, we're talking about the individual who is not interested in providing survivor benefits or in retirement income, who just won't agree that life insurance serves a valuable function. We say 2 tries is all this fellow is worth. Sure, there are exceptions, as answers B and C suggest, but the insurance business isn't built on exceptions, and neither is an agent's sales volume.
Question 3 dealt with the older man's advice not to spend a lot of time prospecting in the low-income brackets. Remember his words?
When you get some experience, you'll be much better off showing people with money how to save and invest it the life insurance way, rather than trying to convince small wage earners they should put money aside for their funeral.
The panel thought the experienced man was passing out some good advice here. They voted for answer A to this third question.
Yes, that's right. While there is no question that families in the low-income bracket have a real need for insurance protection, the agent who spends most of his time selling to these families is likely to wind up in the same bracket. As your own experience no doubt proves, there is a surprising percentage of middle and high-income families without sufficient insurance to protect their standard of living should the wage earner die. This is our natural market, the one offering the biggest potentials for sales and earnings.
Yes, some salesmen are knocking themselves out selling small policies. They process 75 to 100 cases a year and wind up writing a total of $150,000 or $200,000 for the year, which isn't exactly a magnificent sum. The same effort expended on higher income prospects who can afford to buy $5,000 and $10,000 policies and up will produce a yearly volume of $500,000 to $1 million and more. This calls for raising one's sights if your usual sale is for only $2,000 or $3,000. Incidentally, that C answer to question 3 sounds reasonable. But no matter what area a man works in, he can always find a sizable number of good prospects among the businessmen, store owners, property owners, and others in the community with money to buy sizable policies. It's a matter of seeking them out.
Question 4 dealt with these remarks by Walter Masters.
The most productive prospecting skill any agent can have is an ability to meet people and make friends of them easily.
Undoubtedly, everyone present will agree that being able to make friends easily is an important prospecting asset. Whether it is the most important cannot be proved or disproved. However, our panel of insurance men believe it is the most important. They voted for answer B. Here's a panel member to explain.
In reviewing our experience, we agreed that the most successful life insurance salesmen we know are men who are constantly making new acquaintances, continually circulating among new groups of people and winning their respect and liking. This seems to be the surest and most productive source of new business. We know a great many agents who use all the other prospecting methods and use them effectively, too. But on the whole, they don't do as well as the men who have cultivated the knack for quickly establishing a friendly relationship with practically everyone they meet.
I like the way you put that. Cultivated the knack of making friends. It's a mistake to believe that this knack is an inborn or natural characteristic. Sure, it's easier for some people to cultivate it because of their natural disposition. But anyone who wants to can develop the ability to make friends. We can't go into all the things that are involved, but we agreed that the primary requirement is an ability to take a genuine interest in the affairs and welfare of the people we meet, to subordinate our own immediate interests to theirs. The best way to make friends is to actually take steps to meet new people every day. The verb is important here. You make friends. You don't just acquire them. For example, do you always sit or talk with the same group at club and social functions? Or do you seek out new people and introduce yourself to them? For that matter, do you make it a point to put yourself into the situations where you can make new friends? Most of us are too conservative about approaching strangers. Some of us see the same people on the train or elevator or bus every day and never give them a friendly greeting. Yet we are always delighted when someone takes the initiative and displays friendliness to us. If you're hesitant about approaching people, you can help overcome it by making it a point to approach someone new every day. You'll soon find yourself wondering what held you back.
I know of a case where 2 agents belonged to the same country club. One agent knew practically everyone, but wrote very little business. The other agent sold a considerable amount to members of that same club, in many instances to people who hadn't even known the other agent was in the insurance business. Now, the point is, if you're hesitant about approaching strangers on a friendly basis, or not able to quickly win friends, It's costing you a lot of money, and you ought to do something to correct the situation.
Moving along, question 5 asked you to judge which of 4 techniques for getting referrals seems most likely to produce the best results. The panel split their votes among all 4 techniques and agreed that any of them is likely to produce good results when properly used. If someone voted for the E answer and came up with another good technique for getting referrals, well, so much the better. That's an important objective of these discussion sessions, exchanging good ideas. One panel member pointed out that you use up a prospect in every interview, whether or not you sell him. You'll never run out of names if you get at least 1 referral from every prospect eliminated. Now, question 6 asked if you agreed with this statement by Walter Masters.
A thorough understanding of the uses and applications of life insurance can turn up as many sales opportunities for you as any prospecting technique.
The panel agreed with this thinking. They voted for answer A.
Life insurance was created to fill certain definite human needs. It can be sold more easily when the agent applies it to the solution of these needs, rather than trying to sell policies or make commissions. Prospecting becomes much simpler when the underwriter has trained himself to recognize situations in which life insurance can solve a problem. And by being able to uncover hidden needs, he automatically opens up more opportunities to make a sale. Put another way, the more types of merchandise you have to sell, the more prospects you have. This is the reason why so many underwriters continually strive to learn more about insurance and its applications. Not only does knowledge of life insurance open up the door to new prospects, but it enables the salesman to upgrade the quality of his prospects and to serve his present clients better.
Well, the final question dealt with the basic prospecting ideas outlined by Walter Masters. The panel liked these ideas and agreed that they constitute, as they stand, a 5-step formula any agent can use to improve his prospecting. They are worth following.
As you just heard, we pretty much agreed with everything Walter Masters said. In addition to the points he brought out in his talk with the new agent, we would like to add a few of our own. For instance, we think you can't be really good at prospecting until you learn to enjoy it as a stimulating, pleasant experience. If you dislike prospecting, it's undoubtedly because you aren't good at it or don't believe enough in what you are selling. The remedy here is to study the whole aspect of prospecting and start practicing the good ideas you pick up. Until you are expert at making new friends easily, building nests of prospects and establishing centers of influence and getting good referrals, you are losing sales and money every day. A good start toward better prospecting is to concentrate on the prospecting method you like best of all and to master it. This will be the beginning of increased job satisfaction for you and a much higher income. Why not decide to get started on these objectives today? Good luck and good selling.
Gentlemen, every year millions of dollars of insurance are sold to prospects who were first contacted by telephone. But like any sales tool, A great deal of practice is required to use the telephone skillfully. The purpose of this case recording is to help you cash in on the sales potential which lies in good telephone practices. While some agents have even learned how to sell over the telephone, we're going to confine ourselves in this session to its use in making appointments. You'll hear a series of phone calls, and after each one, you'll be asked to express your opinion. Okay, if you're all set, let's listen carefully to our first call.
Good morning, Miller Manufacturing Company.
Hello. Can I speak to Mr. George Miller, please?
Mr. Miller, thank you. Mr. Miller's office.
Hello. Is Mr. Miller in, please? I'd like to talk with him.
May I ask who's calling?
Well, this is Mr. Evans. Is Mr. Miller tied up?
May I ask what you want to talk to him about, Mr. Evans?
Well, I'm with the new life insurance company, and, I read an item in the paper that Mr. Miller was recently promoted, and I wanted to talk to him about that.
Well, Mr. Miller is busy and will be tied up this morning. Can I have him call you, Mr. Evans?
Oh, I see. Well, all right. My number is Evergreen 3417.
Let's stop at this point and discuss this phone call. The meeting leader will now distribute a check sheet for you to rate this call as well as the others to follow. In rating each call, be prepared to explain the reasoning behind your choice. After you've compared and discussed your rating, you'll hear how a panel of experts rated each call. In rating the first call, the panel voted unanimously for answer C. They agreed the call made by Agent Evans represented poor handling, that it was bad from beginning to end. Here are some members to explain why.
First, let's listen again to how Agent Evans opened the call.
Hello. Can I speak to Mr. George Miller, please?
Since the operator did not personally handle Mr. Miller's calls, she put the agent through to his secretary. If there were no secretary, however, the operator in all probability would have recognized the uncertain, humble tone as coming from someone who doubted his right to take up Mr. Miller's time. So she would have questioned the agent about his purpose. As it was, the secretary recognized these very qualities in the agent's opening remarks to her. Remember?
Hello. Is Mr. Miller in, please? I'd like to talk with him.
May I ask who's calling?
Well, this is Mr. Evans. Is Mr. Miller tied up?
The agent's hesitation and his anticipation of a rejection by the words, "Is Mr. Miller tied up?" told the secretary that Mr. Evans wasn't quite sure his call was important enough. So naturally, she decided to find this out for herself by asking what the call was about.
May I ask what you want to talk to him about, Mr. Evans?
I read an item in the paper that Mr. Miller was recently promoted, and I wanted to talk to him about that.
Yes, the agent's reply told her very clearly that the call was one in which her boss had no previous interest, so she blocked it, especially since the agent had already given up, as indicated by his use of the words "I wanted to," past tense, instead of "I want to talk to Mr. Miller." Now, many times you can get past an inquisitive secretary by telling her that the call is a personal one, or by saying in a firm voice, "I want to speak to Mr. Miller directly." Note that you don't say, "I'd like to." If she still insists he is too busy, it is not advisable to leave your number. Always retain the initiative. Instead, ask her when would be a good time to call. Now, here's how we feel this call to the prospect's place of business should go.
Good morning, Miller Manufacturing Company.
Mr. Miller, please.
Yes, sir, I'll ring his office. Mr. Miller's office?
Is he there?
Yes, sir. Who shall I say is calling?
Tell him Tom Evans.
Oh, all right, Mr. Evans. I'll ring him for you.
This kind of positive approach will get you past most secretaries in large companies. They will think you are another executive calling. Of course, some may still want to know the exact nature of your call. In that case, your reply could be something like this.
Well, this is Mr. Evans of the New Life Insurance Company. I want to have a chat with him about his recent promotion. Please put me through to Mr. Miller.
As our panel members stated, when a secretary is screening calls, a positive manner with a firm yet pleasant voice is usually best. Actually, only a few secretaries have instructions to screen calls. Many of them just take it on themselves to do this. Note that no misrepresentations are called for. The purpose of your call is simply stated in such a way that the secretary assumes her boss knows you or has had previous discussions with you. Okay, let's say Agent Evans has made a second call to a Mr. Anderson and gotten past his secretary. Be ready to rate him after we hear how he handles it.
Hello, Herb Anderson talking.
Hello, Mr. Anderson. I'm Tom Evans of the Nick Life Insurance Company. I understand you've just been promoted. Congratulations.
Thank you.
My business, Mr. Anderson, is helping people to save money. I have a new plan which has proven of value to a number of up-and-coming businessmen like yourself. Can we set up an appointment for tomorrow morning to discuss this, say at 10:15? Or would the afternoon be better for you?
I guess you want to talk to me about insurance. I'm afraid I won't be able to see you for some time. I'm too busy right now getting organized, as you can imagine.
Yes, I knew you would be busy, Mr. Anderson. That's why I telephoned rather than just dropping in. Even though I'm sure you'll be interested in what I have to show you. But we all have to take time out for lunch. Why don't we have a bite together someday this week? We can talk about it then. Is tomorrow about 12:15 convenient for you?
All right, please rate this second telephone call. After your discussion, we'll hear what the panel has to say about it.